Yeah, thanks, Zulu, for the introduction. First of all, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Wonderful. Also, I've shared my screen. I'm not sure if it's visible right now to everyone. I'll just minimize the window on the side.
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect. So, just to take you through the agenda for today, I had shared it earlier on the WhatsApp group as well. What I'll do is there are 6 modules in total to this session. And in these 6 modules, we'll cover the basic building blocks in terms of how do you build a communication with the client, how do you build a story with the client, and eventually when you have a particular media requirement or a business requirement, how do you go about solving for it? At the same time, how do you also build long-term strategic relationships with clients, which can lead to a long-term deal as well, right? So the first section, I think I just heard, is there some background noise? All right. So the first section we'll cover is the OTT landscape in India. It's something which comes up in a lot of discussions because people are very curious to know in terms of how has the OTT growth been fueled and who are the key players in the market and what are the kind of trends and developments that we're seeing. The other part is I'm going to talk about some of the Hotstar USPs. So what are the key selling points of the platform? How is it differentiated as compared to a Facebook or a YouTube? And how can you utilize the strength of the network to fulfill your marketing objectives? Third part, we're going to talk about the media solutions. So we'll talk about the ad formats that are available within the platform. We'll also talk about the kind of targeting that you have and what kind of innovations can you leverage to communicate your message in a very innovative and crisp format. Then we'll talk about the content integrations that we have within the platform. So there are different kinds of integrations that you can do. For example, all of you have seen Coffee with Karan. There's a section called the rapid fire round. And every time you have the rapid fire round, Karan says that, okay, Google, turn on the rapid fire lights. So that's an example of an in-content integration where we get the host of a show to talk about a particular product. And it is a part of the production schedule. So we need to ensure that, there's enough timeline to ensure that all the approvals and budgets are in place before we go for any of these kind of integrations. Post which we'll talk about the mind of the marketer. This is one thing which is very interesting for me personally because every time I used to talk to a marketer or somebody on the brand side, I used to talk about the media metrics in terms of what is the kind of impressions that you can get, how many clicks can you get from this particular campaign, what will be the CTR, what will be the conversion rate. But when I saw the other side, the marketer side, and I have worked on the client side as well, generally people don't talk the same language, right? They talk about the awareness scores that they have of a particular brand or a product. They talk about the purchase intent scores and they talk about the consideration scores. And it's very important that we understand the language of the marketer in terms of what are the key challenges that he's facing in his life. And if we are able to give him a solution to solve for those needs, those conversations see a lot more traction rather than talking about a plain Jane kind of media solution. And the final section will be closing the deal. So, yeah, personally what I've seen is that when we're trying to close a large deal for about 5 crore or 10 crore or 20 crore, there is a very strong logical aspect to it where we give them data points to support that particular campaign. We also give them a lot of supporting arguments in terms of why this platform or why this particular property makes sense. But along with logic, what I've seen is a lot of times that if you, give only logical explanations or logical arguments to kind of close a deal, it might not be enough, right? So it's also very important to understand the emotional aspect of it. There is a time sensitivity. If you have to do a large campaign on an IPL or a Coffee with Karan, there is a certain timeline because there are production schedules. There's also a lot of key competition which is involved in the buying process. And there are also exclusive deals that we can do, right? So these are very important levers that you can utilize while closing a deal. And if you feel that things are getting stuck at any level, you need to understand why they're getting stuck. Is it because of a logical reason, emotional reason? And at the same time, I'll also walk you through some of the large conversations that were closed in the last 1.5 years while I was at Hotstar. All right, I'm not able to see any chat window. I think there's some problem on my screen. So in case there are any questions, I think you can all use the audio in that case, right? All right, moving ahead. So we'll talk about the OTT landscape in India. The first thing which I'm going to speak about is what are some of the demand drivers that we have in the industry. We've seen that there's been a large growth of video streaming platforms, and this all started with YouTube and Facebook, and now it's moved on to other platforms. Even WhatsApp is doing really well today. What I saw was that back in 2010 and 11, when people were on the internet, a lot of the consumption was limited to
Hey, Saumitra,
static consumption.
if everyone can hear me, can you please go full screen?
Okay, just a moment. So where's the option to go for full screen?
Please press F5.
F5. All right, better now? Okay, there's some kind of audio which is coming up when I'm pressing F5.
I think the host will have the option to block and mute all the other than the speaker. I think host can mute all of them. There will be provision to mute
Yes,
all of
sir,
them,
right.
barring the speaker. The host can do that.
Okay. So there's some audio which is popping up when I'm putting on my full screen. Is there some chat window
No,
which is still open?
actually it is coming from one of the participants. So you can mute all the members. I think.
I'll just do
host
full
can-
screen again.
I think Zuzu can mute all of us together. Zuzu, as you the host, can you please check if you can mute everyone?
Yeah, I think you will have that provision. You should be able to do that.
I believe the audio is coming from Saumitra's end.
Yeah, that's what. So when I'm going to full screen, this is auto starting. Could be an issue with my Zoom version, maybe.
Saumitra, may I suggest restarting the PowerPoint presentation?
Just give me a Okay, I think there's a problem with my full screen. Should we carry on as it is if it's still visible?
Sure, yes, that should work.
Cool. So we touched upon some of the key drivers of which have fueled the growth of online video. Most of us are already aware that India is the second largest market when it comes to consumption of online video. And some of the reasons why this has happened is that the cost of data has been falling over time. And as of now, it's as cheap as 3.3 rupees per GB. There's also been a lot of growth in, apart from the metro markets and tier 1 and tier 2, a lot of the incremental growth has been fueled by the rural markets. And this is very, relevant for verticals like FMCG, for verticals like travel, BFSI, automobile, etc., where, most of these companies are looking for the next phase of growth. And while, they've seen that a lot of the other developed markets are already highly, saturated, and India is also very saturated in some of the key metros and tier 1. We are going to see a lot of incremental growth coming in from the tier 2, tier 3, and rural markets. The number of smartphone users in India currently is more than 500 million, and the expectation is that over the next 5 years, they should double in size. So we are projected to have 1 billion people who are going to be online. In terms of the opportunity, it's huge because these are people who have a fair amount of spending power, and ad networks will definitely want to reach out to them because there'll be no one single platform which can reach out across the board, right? You will have a Google which reaches out to certain parts of the audience. There'll be a Facebook as well. There'll be a TikTok as well, which is very popular with these audiences, and then you have new platforms coming as well. Moving on, a little bit of a deep dive into the kind of patterns that you have online. So the amount of time that people spend online on OTT platforms is 70 minutes per day. On Hotstar, what we've seen is that this averages to about 35 to 40 minutes per day. And the good part is that people, when they come on an OTT platform, the key difference between OTT and social is that on social, typically the content is 2 to 3 minutes in terms of the length. And when people are consuming social content, they're generally on the go, right? So they could be in a cab, they could be in a metro, they're trying to while some time away. While the OTT consumption patterns are slightly different because one user session could be as long as 40 minutes long, which means that people could consume an entire episode of A Coffee with Karan, they could watch a movie which they like, and they have a sufficient amount of time as well, which means that if you expose them to a particular ad communication during this window, the attention span will be a lot more, and at the same time, you will also see a retention of the audiences over time, because typically this content is in the form of seasons and episodes. Giving you a view of the kind of genres that are being consumed, 30% is what people spend watching movies online. A lot of this is Bollywood. You also have the regional movie content that is being consumed. So Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Kannada. These are very popular genres as well. Catch-up TV is about 22%, which means that this is content which is already available on television, but people who want to consume it during a later time, because A, they didn't have access to the television when it was telecast live, or maybe they just like watching it on. Music videos is another big genre as well, along with sports. What we've seen in the last couple of years, sports has about 80 to 90% of male audiences, but increasingly what we're seeing is that on Hotstar and other platforms as well, more and more females are starting to watch sports as well. So, when brands are coming up with their brand brief, initially it used to be a conversation that if I am a female-centric brand like a Imami, I will never put, my money on sports properties. But more and more we've seen that as sports is gaining popularity and as people are coming online, we are seeing more and more people coming on this genre as well. The other interesting part which I want to call out is that about 1/3 of the content on Hotstar and across different video platforms in India is non-Hindi content. So this is the different belts like Bengali, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, etc. And the reason why the consumption is still at 1/3, so about 36% of the consumption is in the regional languages, because right now we don't have enough content for these markets. But as more and more content becomes available, we will start seeing a greater spike in the vernacular content as well. So the next section is the Hotstar platform USPs. Now, before I walk you through some of the key metrics that we have on our platform, just wanted to do a quick check. Does everybody know what SVOD and AVOD is?
No, I'm sorry, sir. Actually, I'm a university student, so I don't know what that is.
Sure. And sorry, I'm not able to access my chat, so I'm having to ask verbally. So I'll just give you a quick view of SVOD and AVOD. So SVOD is basically subscription video on demand, and AVOD is ad-based video on demand. The difference between the two is that subscription video on demand, SVOD services are paid services. So when you look at a platform like a Netflix or Amazon Prime, these are examples of SVOD, where you cannot access their content unless and until you pay a certain amount of membership fees. And there will be different levels of it. So depending on how much you pay, you will get more and more access. So Netflix, if you take the highest level, which is a deluxe connection, you get 4 screens and you get HD access as well. And now, apart from SVOD, you also have AVOD platforms. So AVOD are basically platforms which are monetizing through advertising. And then there are hybrid platforms as well. So an example of a AVOD platform would be a YouTube, where you can access all of the YouTube content for free. Very recently, YouTube has also launched their premium content as well, which is accessible for 100 rupees. And Hotstar would be an example of a hybrid network where we are putting in AVOD as well as SVOD. So SVOD would be all the content which you have to pay for, which is not available for free. And to give you a sense of the kind of audiences that we have on the platform, as of now, we have more than 300 million downloads of Hotstar in India. And out of that, about 5% is on the premium side, which means that these are the paying customers, and 95% is the AVOD side, people who are consuming the free content. And in terms of revenue contribution as well, about 90% revenue is driven by advertising. So that is something to give a sense of. Over time, right now we have about 25 to 30 million people who are watching Netflix in India and Prime as well. And what we're estimating is over the next 3 to 4 years, the number of S-word users in India might start approaching 70 to 80 million. Now, coming to the core numbers, we have
Excuse me, sir. Yeah, so according to you, like Hotstar would be considered as a hybrid platform, right?
Correct. So, if you consume Hotstar as a free user and you log in, you will have access to some of the content, and the remaining content which is behind the paywall, it's called the VIP content. You will have to pay 365 rupees to unlock that content. And then we have premium content as well. So premium is all the content like Disney and all the Hollywood content. For that, you have to pay 1,000 rupees a year to unlock that. Now, interestingly, for the premium users, we do not show them ads, right? So those audiences cannot be monetized through ads. Those are completely subscription-led. But, right now, because it's a very small percentage of our overall audience, it's not contributing significantly. But tomorrow, if we get more and more people to pay for content, then we will get a larger contribution of revenue coming in from this source as well. And right now, we have more than 300 million downloads of Hotstar. In fact, the number is closer to 400 million. And out of that, on a regular month, when we do not have a large event like an IPL or a World Cup, we see about 235 million monthly active users. These are the number of people who come to Hotstar to view various types of content. So there is comedy, there is GEC content, there is reality shows, there's sports drama, etc. And interestingly, if you look at the reach of Hotstar, right? So television reach in India right now is about 800 to 900 million in terms of the overall reach. But if you look at the urban markets, in the urban markets, we have 80% of the TV reach, which means that if you can reach about 300 million people through television in the urban markets, we can reach 80% of that for you. Also goes on to show that, while, the rural markets are catching up, in most of the urban markets and the developed markets, the reach of OTT platforms is now rivaling that of TV. And if you look outside India, the OTT platforms are actually more in terms of reach as compared to television, because people have completely moved on from TV to online. The other piece which I want to touch upon is that 50% of our viewership is on prime time. And this is a very big mythbuster for a lot of people, because a lot of brands, they thought that, people watch Hotstar or people watch Netflix when they don't have access to the television. Which means that, they are going to watch it either in the morning when they're traveling to work, or they'll watch it in the evening when they're coming back from work, or they'll watch it in office. Essentially, when they don't have access to their living room. But what we saw was when we, deep dived our data, we saw that a lot of the spikes on television happen between 6 to 9 p.m., which is called the prime time. And we have seen a similar spike on Hotstar as well. That, people, when they reach home and they have access to their living room, they're still watching on Hotstar. There are multiple reasons to explain this behavior. One is that we have people who are called cord cutters. So cord cutters are people who have completely cut the cord of the cable cord, essentially. And they no longer have a Tata Sky or a normal cable connection at home. So they're completely viewing content online. And the second part of the viewers that we classify them as the cord shavers. So these are people who have a Tata Sky connection, but they don't really consume it actively. It's either consumed by their parents or somebody in their house, and they completely consume their content online. And now, with the advent of Fire TV and Chromecast, it's becoming more and more digital. So people don't like to wait for their content, right? If I want to watch sport, then I don't want to wait till night, or I don't want to wait till next day to watch a particular telecast. I can watch it whenever I want on the go. So it's called on-demand video. And the other piece is that, we talk about retention of audiences. This is something which a lot of ad networks struggle, because there's such large audiences on an ad network that it's difficult to get the kind of frequency that you want. So that's another thing which I'll touch upon in this PPT, that how can you build frequency over a period of time, so that when you expose an audience with a frequency of 3 or 4, the retention of that message will be much higher as compared to if you expose them with a frequency of 1 or 2. Any questions on this slide?
Sir, about the frequency part, I didn't understand, like what are you trying to say? Any ad which you show, the frequency should be 3 or 4 times to, or any message you want to give in which through ad or something. So you're telling that frequency should be 3 or 4 to have a good retention time.
Correct. So, let's take an example. Let's say the Himalaya comes up with a new campaign and they're launching a bunch of digestive pills, and they give me a brief saying that I want to, expose audiences with a frequency of 4, that I have got this new formula which is more effective. Now, what we have seen is that if I expose that particular communication, which is an ad communication, with a frequency of 1, the retention of that message is about 5 to 6%. If I increase the frequency from 1 to a 2 to a 3, I see that this jumps by about 3x. So that 5% retention moves up to 15% retention. which means that for the same amount of money spent, you will get 3 times the efficiency in terms of your brand metrics.
Do we have some data to back it up?
Yeah, so I have a couple of slides on this particular section. So as I move along, I'll show you the data as well.
Great,
Cool.
great.
So move on. These are some of the marquee properties that you have on Hotstar. Game of Thrones, contributed a lot towards the SWOT side. We got a lot of people signing on to Hotstar. In fact, about 2 to 3 million people signed on just because of Game of Thrones. IPL this year, unfortunately, has been delayed because of the health situation. But we are expecting it to premiere maybe for next month or the month after that. And Coffee with Karan also, we are expecting the next season to be launched by October this year. Now, this slide will give you a sense in terms of how Hotstar is benchmarked versus the other OTT players in the market. As of now, we have more than 50 or 60 OTT players in the market. And I am expecting some kind of consolidation, given that there are too many players and, there are only so many apps that you can install on your phone. So this is a number of billion minutes spent on the platform. And to give you a sense of the numbers in terms of the number of users, Amazon Prime, the last data we received was they had about 35 million users in India, which is the number of downloads. Netflix has about the same, and pretty much all the other platforms are about 30 to 40 million users monthly. Hotstar currently has about 235 million monthly active users. There are multiple reasons behind this. One is that they have the rights for all the BCCI tournaments in India, and cricket is one of the largest impact properties that you have. And apart from cricket, they also have some very, very key properties, which are, the Disney properties and the Marvel properties also there on the platform. And along with that, they have a lot of regional content. So Star has more than 40 channels which are part of Star. So in South, we have Star Vijay, we have Star Marathi, Star Telugu, and we have Star Plus and all the other GEC belts as well. So given all of these content pieces combined, they have a huge reach, which is pan-India, versus Prime and Netflix, which are primarily a metro and a tier 1 kind of phenomenon, which are geared towards the English-speaking audiences.
So going forward, how would you define the audience to shift? As in, like right now, we know that the majority of the signups have happened because of maybe an IPL or maybe because of the BCCI tournament. But going forward, if going forward, what do the numbers look like? Will the customers stick around for the sports related content, or will they stick around for, say, the primetime content, which is basically the catch up content? So just trying to identify what is going to be the audience to which the ad will be shown to.
Fair enough. And just to give you a sense of the kind of content buckets that we have, so sports is a different bucket, which is a live environment, while GEC is the general entertainment channels that you touched upon. They are more of a VOD content. The difference between VOD and live is that video on demand is essentially that if you want to watch one particular episode of Coffee with Karan, or if you want to watch Sarabhai versus Sarabhai, you can go on the application and you can start streaming the content whenever you want it, right? Live content is different because this stream is sent out to millions of users at the same time. So in terms of the tech and the backend, there are different techs and backends. And also in terms of targeting capability, they're different. Moving forward, we do realize that there's a lot of dependency on cricket as a platform. And, it's not good to have so much dependency on one particular content genre. So there's a lot of effort which is being put in, not just by Hotstar, but even Netflix and Prime and all the other OTT channels like Z5, Sony Live Wood, they are building a lot of content which is exclusive towards the OTT channels, which is the original content, right? Now, I feel that original content will have a lot of traction, at least with the young audiences, because this will be content which is tailor-made for their requirements, right? So this could be around comedy, this could be around lifestyle. I also feel that reality shows are going to have a lot of traction on the OTT platforms because people like to interact with a particular show when it's happening, right? And OTT will allow you to interact with the contestants and the audiences while the show is happening. So maybe something like a KBC or a Kapil Sharma show could be made more interactive over time. And Hotstar is also working along those lines to develop more content to ensure that we get enough users coming in on a daily basis, monthly basis, so we can monetize them as well. The other piece is that
sorry, one last question on the last question on this. So as you pointed out, majority of the audience and the content that is being created also is mostly for the young population. So when you say there is a kind of saturation in the urban audience, whereas there is a lot of opportunity in the rural audience, do you think the content that is being created versus the audience that is being that is going to purchase through the ads is in sync with the overall strategy?
So, the way I view it is that the urban audiences, which are the slightly more affluent audiences, are the ones who will be willing to pay. So they will be the subscription audiences. But apart from that, if you talk about the masses, which are in the tier 2 and tier 3 towns and rural areas as well, a lot of the content that they're consuming is in their regional language, right? So I've seen that, companies like MX Player and companies like Sony Live have been working very hard to build regional content for these people. And given the very nature of these audiences, I don't expect too much of a subscription revenue to come in from them. But, given the volume is about 300 to 400 million people, I think ad revenue is what's going to drive these particular markets. And along with that, a lot of work has to be done from the platform side as well, where they have to build content which is relevant to them. Right. So even Netflix, if you see some of the recent content which was launched by them, like Sacred Games is one example of it. But the other content was also primarily geared towards the urban audiences. And even they've realized that, if we do not go beyond the urban audiences, we will never be able to grow more than 20 to 30 million users. If you want 200 or 300 million users, we have to be like a YouTube, or we have to be like a Facebook, where we have something for everybody.
So not specifically speaking from a Hotstar point of view, but from an advertiser point of view, that I approach to Hotstar and I want to do some kind of a campaign. The content that you are creating is majority for the urban audience versus the growth that will happen, or the products that will be purchased, or the impact of the campaign will come in rural audience. So I'm just trying to establish the overall sync. I'm just taking a little too much time. If you'd like to brief on this for last 1 minute, I think that will be all.
Sure, no worries. So that completely depends upon the brief, right? So if today I'm talking to a Xiaomi versus an Apple or a OnePlus, right? The OnePlus audiences, if you look at them, they're primarily tier 1 and metro people who are earning well and who are also very tech savvy. So for those audiences, maybe a solution around metros and tier 1 will make sense. But if I talk to a Xiaomi, which is, primarily a tier 2 and tier 3 kind of phenomenon, also driven by metros, they are businesses which are led by distributors and retail, right? And they will need to have a lot of mass presence and impact across the country. Even FMCG players, when you talk about an HUL or a P&G, they will talk about a campaign which can reach about 300 or 400 million people pan-India. So depending on the kind of client that you have, depending on the kind of business requirement that you have, you will have to give them a solution which meets their requirements. From a Hotstar perspective, we have enough reach in the tier 2 and tier 3 markets because we have vernacular content and we have a lot of regional content as well. So for us, that's not a challenge. But the problem which I see is that the competition platforms are starting to understand this user behavior. So it will get more and more tough over time as more content becomes available. The brand marketers will have more platforms. So their budgets will get divided between 10 platforms versus 3 right now. And moving on. So the other part is that, in terms of brand safety, and this is a conversation which comes up very regularly with my FMCG clients, it comes up with my handset clients as well, that is your platform brand safe? And this is primarily come from the fear that, what happened with Facebook and TikTok, that there was a lot of non-brand safe content on the platform, Google as well. And, brands were scared that if my display ad or if my particular communication shows up next to a content which I don't feel is fit for my brand, it could be, videos which show people dancing, it could be entertainment related. So brands always have this kind of hesitation that, is your platform safe? Is it something which we can rely on? And one thing which we tell them is that in our case, none of our content is made by users. It's not user generated content. It's completely made in-house. It's got the, star production capability behind it. And anything that you show, any content that you show your ads in, you can select the content pieces. So it will not be randomly shown across different properties, right? If you tell me that, you are looking at English speaking audiences, then I will not show an ad during a Tamil show.
Excuse me, can
example,
I please interrupt? Mr. Prashant Kumar, can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, hi, Asim, right?
Yes, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, did you have a question? Okay. Cool. The one part is that, it's completely brand safe as a platform. And the second part is that you can select the properties which are relevant to your particular product and your brand and also your current business requirement. The third thing which I wanted to talk about is the completion rates. And this is something which most media managers take very seriously. When you're doing a video campaign, you see that what is the completion rate of my campaign. So OLV is online video, OTT is over the top, which is essentially a Hotstar or a Netflix. What we've seen is that on an OLV platform like a YouTube, for example, the completion rate ranges anywhere between 20 to 35%. I have done multiple campaigns on YouTube, and what I've seen is that they have a skippable ad format, and typically the completion rate for a good campaign is about 35. It can go up to 40% as well. While on social, like a Facebook, we have seen a 2 to 3% completion rates, depending on how attractive your initial communication is, right? So if you want to get more completion rate on a social media platform like Facebook, you have to make sure that the thumbnail of your video is very attractive so that people stop for a second before they move on and scroll down. So as compared to that, the last couple of campaigns that I've done for my clients, I have seen a completion rate of up to 97%. Although that's something on the higher side. On average, at a platform level, we have 85% completion rate. Why that's important is because marketers they don't like it when their communication does not see a completion, and it also impacts the overall performance of the campaign. So that's another key talking point which I bring upon very frequently. The other piece is
what would you attribute that to? Why is it between 85% to 97%?
Yeah, so a couple of factors. One is that when people are watching content on Hotstar, the content is of 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on what you're watching, right? So if you're watching a GEC, entertainment channel, one episode will be about 30 minutes. If you're watching a Coffee with Karan or any other content which is a reality show, it will be about 1 hour in terms of the length of the show. And generally, when people are consuming content of this nature and this quality, they have been following these shows for a period of time. So they are not snacking or they're not going there just because they have 5-10 minutes additional to kind of pass their time. They're taking out time and they're following these shows. So that's why, typically what we've seen is, if you look at the next slide, this is the kind of consumption that you see on Hotstar during the period of a day, right? So 6 a.m. is in the morning and 12 is this is during midnight. And we have seen that there's a particular spike during lunchtime between 1 and 2 o'clock, and there's a spike between 8 to 10 o'clock. Which essentially means that, there was a lot of perception in the market that Hotstar or a OTT is a catch-up television screen, that when you don't have access to your television, you're watching it. But we have seen that during prime time, when people are home, when they have enough time and they've, had the dinner, that is when the content starts spiking as well. And if you benchmark this with social platforms and YouTube, you will see that this consumption is spread out across the day. And generally, the kind of content that you see on Facebook is about 2 to 3 minutes in length. You have funny cat videos, you have baby videos as well. This is not curated content. This is mostly UGC content which people are consuming. So typically, a session duration will be between 5 to 10 minutes versus a 1 hour session on Hotstar. I hope that addresses your question.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Cool. Moving on. So this is a very interesting part of the presentation, and this is one slide which I showed to all of my clients. So if you look at the data on the left, it talks about the retention of audiences. To give you an example, let's say that I'm starting with a new season of Coffee with Karan on the 1st of April. And 1 month down the line, I want to see how many of those people are being retained over a period of 1 month. So the first week, second week, third week, and fourth week is the time duration. And what we've seen is that if 100 people are watching the show on the 1st of April, by the end of the month, 42% of that audience will be retained on the platform. Okay, and the reason behind this is because the kind of way the production schedules are aligned is that we launch 1 episode per week. And in the case of GEC, we launch 2 episodes per week. So every week, people come back to consume the next episode of that particular series that they're following. Right? Why this is important is because typically, when I get a brand guideline or a brand brief, I get a mandate from the brand saying that I want to have a frequency of at least 3, and ideally I want a frequency of 6, because that is what I want. If I want to see some kind of efficacy of the campaign, and if I want to see a larger impact of the campaign, I should at least expose my audience with a frequency of 4 to 6. And on the right hand side, you will see the lift in aided awareness. So just to give you a sense of what awareness is, this is the number of people who are aware of a particular brand or a service. And what we've seen is that when we expose an audience with a frequency of 1 to 2, the lift in awareness is about 5.5%. And as we increase the frequency from a 2 to a 3, this awareness goes up to 15%. All right. So we'll move on to the next section. If anybody has any questions around this, I'm happy to take them.
Yes, I do have a question. What about ad fatigue? How much is too much?
Sorry, come again?
How much is too many ads, too much frequency?
So I was talking to Nokia last week, and they asked me this question that, we have done a TV campaign, and apart from Nokia, some of the other handset brands were also there on, Kapil Sharma show, and they were also there on KBC. And they saw that their frequency was 22 to 26 on television. And they asked me this question that, is it good to show my ad 26 times? See, my view is that if you are exposing somebody more than 8 to 9 times with your communication and you only have one ad creative, then it's going to have a negative impact on the user because they will start getting irritated by your message, right? Now, on TV networks, you cannot do any kind of frequency control because you are only buying in terms of number of spots. So you cannot control who's watching when, but on digital networks, you can do an F-capping. So Google allows it, Facebook allows it, and we also do it where we say that, if you want a frequency cap of 4, we will allow you to do that on our platform. And ideally, it should be a brand call, right? So depending on the complexity of the message, depending on the kind of product that you have. In the case of BFSI, I've seen that even if I see an ad 15 times, I still want to watch it because it's a very complex communication. Versus an FMCG ad, which I think 3-4 times should be enough for me to remember that Tropicana has a new flavor which is coming out.
Right. So it all depends on the brand and the product, or let's say the message, kind of message.
But as a brand manager, I think more than 10 times if you're showing an ad to someone, then you're kind of losing out on your media efficiency because, if you're exposing one guy 10 times, then your reach is going down for the campaign.
Absolutely.
I'd like to reach out to more people with a frequency of 5 than reach out to a bunch of people with a frequency of 10.
Right. So in the world of display, anything more than 3 could be ad fatigue. But then, as you said, it depends on the brand. It depends on the, let's say, your creatives, how smartly are you rotating them, and so on. Good.
In fact, Oppo, when they had their last campaign, the F20 Pro, when it was launched, they had about 7 or 8 creatives, and they got in Katrina Kaif and Ranveer Singh and Acha for those set of communications. So what they used to do was, for every week when there was a new episode of Coffee with Karan, they used to come out with a separate creative, and I thought that was great because every time they talk about a particular communication of Oppo, they talked about a different feature. So the first ad was about the camera. The second was about the zoom feature, and the third was about the charging. So I think that was a great way to kind of separate all the different aspects of your product and give them one communication at a time.
That's interesting. Is there anything that you can share from your learnings by managing different brand campaigns?
Yeah, so we have that section later on when we talk about some of the deals which were closed, and I'll talk about the creative rotation as well in terms of how did they utilize the rotation, how did they ensure that they were efficient while showing the right messaging to consumers.
Awesome. That would be interesting. Thanks a lot.
The next section is about the media solutions that you have in Hotstar. The first level of media solutions that we are going to provide is we'll talk about the targeting on the platform. So we have the basic layers of targeting. You can do a geo-targeting at a city level. You can also do it at a state level, and even at a pin code level, we are piloting it, but as of now, it's limited to a city level. We can do language-wise targeting as well, which means that if you select Telugu as a language, or if you select Tamil as a language, you'll automatically show on all the Tamil content shows and Telugu content shows, etc. There's demographic targeting as well. So age and gender, you can target. Genre-based targeting. So if you want to show during comedy shows, or if you want to show during dramas or reality shows, you can select that. The other interesting piece is that we also have carrier-wise targeting. So interestingly, when I talk to a Xiaomi, for example, they keep telling me that, can I reach out to the Reliance Jio users? Because those are the kind of people who buy my phone, right? Versus someone coming to me saying, I want to reach out to Airtel users because Airtel is more of a metro phenomenon. So that's something which we also provide. Apart from basic targeting, we also have interest-based targeting. And to give you a sense of how this works, we have a tie-up with App Annie. So we have their data available on our network. And apart from App Annie, we've also tied up with all the carriers. So Vodafone, Jio, and Airtel have tied up with Hotstar. And we have an understanding of within the ecosystem, we know that what kind of behaviors a particular user is exhibiting. So if somebody is very, very frequently shopping on Flipkart, we will know that he's a frequent shopper, for example. And today, if one of my clients, for example, if a Imami says that I want to target frequent shoppers on Hotstar, it's an interest segment that I can provide to them. And, it's pretty much across the board. So we can even target binge watchers. We can target power users. If I get a brief saying that I want to target all frequent travelers. So if an Amex comes to me and says that I want to target all frequent travelers, that's something which I'll be able to provide to them. Apart from this, we have some modules which are the more advanced modules. So we can do retargeting on Hotstar. And retargeting is in the basis of the cookie data that we have, right? So if I know for a fact that somebody who has seen my ad previously and has clicked on my ad, I will have the cookie data on my system, and later on I can show them a different communication. So, if I have 3 pieces of communication which I want to communicate, what I can do is I can first expose all of my audiences with the first communication. And everybody who has responded to my first communication can then see my second and then see my third, which will be part of the sequential targeting piece. And we can also create lookalikes. So, if we, for example, if I am targeting all movie buffs on Hotstar, and I see that the total number of movie buffs on Hotstar is about 3 to 4 million users, but the campaign requires me to reach out to 40 million users. What I will do is I will take the attributes of the movie buffs and I will say that these are people who are similar to movie buffs, and I will also show them my ads. So they are the lookalike audience. Okay, any questions on this slide?
Yes, I have. What about custom audiences that is targeting through emails?
We do have the first party data, but as of now, we have not done any campaign around, we have not done it from an advertiser perspective. We do it for retention perspective, where we send a lot of emails to users saying that, their subscription could be expiring or some new show is being launched. Right? We've not monetized it from an ad perspective.
Interesting. So only first party data. How about third party?
We do have third-party data as well. So we've tied up with Flipkart and other ad networks. So, we have all the data of Flipkart. So people who have both Flipkart and Hotstar installed on their mobile phone, we know what kind of categories they've browsed in Flipkart, and basis that we can target those people as well.
That's interesting.
So
I'll
this was
note that
actually
down.
set up last year, and the Flipkart team has also been very supportive in terms of setting that up. And I feel that's fairly powerful because the amount of time that people spend on an e-commerce platform will be about 15 to 20 minutes, while they'll spend 2-3 hours consuming content, right?
Exactly. It's all about how you're able to leverage this, unique strength.
So I'll also give you a view into some of the ad formats that we have on Hotstar. On the left-hand side, what you see is a billboard. A billboard is one of the prime properties that we have on Hotstar. It's just like a YouTube billboard. While a YouTube billboard gives you about 1 billion impressions in a single day, we deliver about 70 to 80 million impressions as of now. And during a sporting day, this number goes up much more. And we deliver a reach of 15 to 20 million. To give you a sense of where the billboard appears, every time you power up the app, the first thing that you see on the top of your screen is going to be the billboard. The second ad unit that we have is called the video ads. So we have bumper ads and mid-roll. A bumper is a 5 to 6 second ad which is shown before the content is streamed. So every time, let's say that you're watching Hell's Kitchen and you go ahead and stream the content. Before your content comes on the screen, you will see a 6-second bumper ad. And post that, we also have mid-roll ads, which can be anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds. And we can also have a longer format of ads. Now, what happens is that depending on the kind of campaign that you have, some clients, they have a video creative and they have a static creative as well. So they say that, why don't you give us a plan which is across display and video? While some clients come and tell us that we only have a video ad, so why don't you give us a plan which has a bumper and a mid-roll? On the right-hand side, what you can see is the static ads that we have on our platform. So one of them is called the display frames. And what you see here is the Intel ad. So as you scroll down on the screen, you will see the display ads coming up. And on the right-hand side, we've got a small call to action ad where if you click on the ad, you can go straight to the advertising page. Cool. And apart from the basic ad formats, billboard, video, and display, we also have some interactive ad units. So for example, if I want to have a carousel which is coming below the ad while the ad is playing, that will help a particular consumer relate with a product feature. So I'll give you an example of Rado. Okay, so the idea here is that when I do a mid-roll ad for one of my clients, what I see is that there's a 1 to 2% click-through rate on the ad, which means that out of every 100 people who see the ad, or 1 or 2 click on the ad. The moment I introduce this small window at the bottom of the screen, what I can do is, along with the video ad, I can show a lot of product features, and those product features can lead to a particular page. In my case, I have seen a CTR of about 6 to 7% when I add a companion carousel with my ad as well. Apart from companion carousel, some of the verticals, they also ask for a lead gen kind of campaign where they want to collect consumer data. So an example of that would be ICICI Bank. Quickly show the ad as well. So here the idea is that when the user is exposed to the ad, there's a form which populates on your screen, and it's an auto-filled form, and you can have the option to submit that. So for clients which are very, very high value clients who are looking at customers who can contribute a very large amount in terms of the ticket size, this is something which they look at. And even automobile as a vertical has been looking at the lead gen form because they want people to sign up for test drives. So we've seen that for Honda and we've seen that for Renault as well. The final thing which is very interesting for the e-commerce companies is that while people see the ad on Hotstar, they also want to see the product catalog. So we can do that with a WebView integration, where the products that you have on your website or application can be integrated within Hotstar. And when people are seeing the ad on the screen, they can also browse through your products. I'll give you an example of that.
पापा की सीएम तक पहचान है पहले
When you browse down, the ad pauses automatically, and then you can go back up.
बार ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग की है
Cool. So this was about the ad formats and the targeting on Hotstar. If you don't have any questions, then I'll move on to the next module.
Yeah, sir, I have one. Like in the lead gen form, how do you like decide which customer to target for the, because you're saying the high ticket customers, you will be targeting them only. But in Hotstar, if I'll say that I'm a student, I have a Hotstar subscription, so I'm paying the same amount as someone who is a billionaire on Hotstar. So how do you differ between me and him? Like what kind of data you are using to differ between us?
Okay, so you want to see that how do we classify HNIs on the platform, right? High net worth
Yes,
individuals.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, we have an App Annie integration where we have some kind of transactional data as well. So we have tied up with the Paytms of the world, and we've tied up with all the wallets of the world. So we know that who are people who are consuming a lot of data and who are also doing a lot of transactions online. Apart from that, as a signal, what I tell my clients is, when Apple comes to me and says that I want to reach out to people who are earning more than 1 lakh a month or 2 lakh a month, so there's no direct way of knowing the salary of somebody or knowing what kind of net worth they have. But what we can do as a proxy, we can target mobile handsets. Right, so I can target all the Samsung S10 devices. I can target all the iPhone X. I can target all the people who are using premium devices, and I can target all the people who are using a Fire Stick and a Chromecast. It's not a perfect way to do it because it's possible that people using a Fire Stick could still be a student and might not fall in my TG, but it's still a lot more accurate than going without any targeting.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So
Cool.
what will be the conversion rates for the major sectors?
So conversion rate for the lead gen form?
Hello.
Yeah. So Vijay, you're talking about
Yeah,
conversion rate
for the major. Yes, lead generation form and as well as normal click-through rates of ads.
Sure. So, typically I see for a 30-second mid-roll ad when you do it on Hotstar, depending on the kind of creative that you have and depending on the kind of communication, your CTR could range between 2 to 3%, and it can go up all the way up to 7 to 8% as well. But that being said, video ads are generally not used as a performance driving medium. If you want to do performance, then it's better to go on a Flipkart or Amazon or to go on a Google search, because that is what is going to activate your lower funnel. Typically, Hotstar, what we do is we look at the mid funnel and top funnel. We do a lot of branding. We build a lot is going to happen. This is the cost. And just to give you a sense of the financial aspect of it, these kind of integrations require a minimum investment of about 5 to 10 crores. Now, apart from in-content integrations, you can also have graphical integrations. So as you can see on the screen, there's something called an Ashton band which comes up as a pop-up on the screen. You can see the same on YouTube as well. So an Ashton band is something which can be contextualized. So for example, if there's a brand which is launching a new camera phone, every time there's a talk of photography, then you can show that particular band saying that shoot good photos with a Vivo or shoot good photos with a OnePlus, etc. And apart from Ashton bands, you can also have a branded window coming up on your screen. I'll show you that as well. So the difference between an in-content integration and a graphical integration is that for an in-content integration, the deal has to be closed before the production shoot is done, while a graphical integration can be done even after the shoot is done, because it's just something which is coming on top of the screen. And also in terms of the people who can do a graphical integration, it is not just for the co-presenting and the associate sponsor. This can be done for people coming in at a lower investment as well, because we don't need our content team and our production team to kind of change the direction of the shoot for this particular integration. Any questions around graphical and in-content integration?
Yeah, if you can help me in understanding what is the CTR rates for such ads?
So these are not sold on CPR. What we do is that these are offered as a value add, or these are offered as a solution to close a large deal. So for example, if I'm closing a 5 crore deal on Sarabhai versus Sarabhai with a Oppo, what I will tell them is that I'm going to give you inventory worth 5 crores. So you will get that many ads showing up as a mid-roll ad or as a pre-roll ad. And along with that, I'm going to, if you come in as a sponsor, I'm going to give you 20 Ashton bands as well.
Got it. Thank you.
So it will be an overall package, and the package could have about 10 to 15 line items. So there will be different ad inventories available, and then there'll be integration packages as well. And these are not sold standalone, right? So we basically make a complex deal out of it, and depending on the budget and depending on the kind of discounting and the direction of the communication, we give them add-ons as a benefit. And along with this, we can also leverage the influencers on the Star network to build more content for them. So when I face a trouble or when I face a problem in closing a deal, what I do is I give another value add where I say that the people who are within those hit shows, they can use their social handles and they can promote your product from there as well. So that's another lever that I can pull to help me close a deal. Okay. Apart from in-content integrations and graphical integrations, we also create content for
Excuse me,
brands.
sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir. In the previous slide, what the thing you're saying that you can add on in a deal, you can add on by saying that the stars in the series also can promote on their personal social handle. But all those things, which that thing can be controlled only by in the series which are which are the originals of Hotstar, right? And the other integration, the in-content integration, that is also can be done in the original video, the in-made house videos only, in-house videos.
Good question. So, we have content which is produced by Star. So for all the Star produced content, like for example, all the Saas Bahu serials and all the Star Plus content and Star Vijay content, on all of those, content pieces which are produced by us, we can make those changes, but it's subject to certain guidelines, right? So the shoot producer has to be okay with the kind of integration that we're doing. The show host also has to be okay with it. But for all the other content which is not made by Hotstar, so for the licensed content, for example, Game of Thrones is licensed by HBO, right? And Marvels is also licensed from Disney. So we don't produce those content pieces. So in those particular shows, we cannot do any in-content integrations.
Okay, thank you.
So, I in fact.
But can the stars, can you get the stars of those shows to kind of promote the brand?
So, someone like a Robert Downey Jr., he is not directly, involved with Hotstar in terms of his contract, right? His contract is with Marvel's the studio. So if we need Robert Downey to do a particular campaign or a particular communication or influencer activity for any of our clients, we'll have to route it through the Marvel studio.
Got it. Got it.
And so interestingly, when Game of Thrones, the final season was being launched, we got a lot of, inquiries coming in from the alcohol brand. So Bacardi and Black Label, they approached us saying that, can we have the White Walkers integration? So whenever the White Walkers come on the screen, can we get an Ashton band coming up saying that, Black Label and White Walkers? But unfortunately, because HBO was very particular about this, they said that there will be no monetization, there will be no advertising during the show. We were not able to do anything with the HBO content. And the same is the case with all the premium content, because anyways, when somebody is watching premium content on Hotstar, we cannot show them ads, right? So, the only way we can monetize a premium user is when they're watching sports, because when they're watching a cricket, series, for example, they will still see the over break. So that's the only place where they'll see ads. But on a VOD, during VOD consumption, we will not be able to monetize them in any way. Yeah, so apart from in content and graphical, we also create content for brands, and we've done this for multiple brands. One of the examples and a very hit case study that we had was with Quaker Oats, and they won a couple of national awards for this as well. What we did was, Pepsi came to us saying that they want to showcase to young people and they want to showcase to modern people that Quaker Oats is not just a breakfast; it's more than that. So you can use Quaker Oats to make multiple recipes. So as part of the brief, what we did was we got Chef Vikas Khanna on board, and Chef Vikas Khanna, in every episode, he uses Quaker Oats to make one particular recipe of a food item, right? So in the first episode, he called Vicky Kaushal, then he called Bhumi Pednekar. And this content series, it saw more than 100 million users accessing the content, and it became a mini series after that. So in the first season, we had 3 episodes, and the second season, we had 3 episodes as well. I'll quickly give you a view into how the show looks like.
Welcome to season 2 with me, Chef Vikas Khanna.
I'm so excited.
Have you done? We share the same initials. Yes, so yes. Oats is a great pre-workout.
Most favorite thing in the world. I want to talk to you also, but I also want to eat.
You can talk and eat together.
So this is the most complex kind of content piece that we can do for a brand, because essentially we are hiring an entire cast. We're getting a director on board, and we're getting a full production team as well, which is going to create all the content for the brand from scratch. So obviously there's a huge cost aspect to it as well. But increasingly what I've seen is that for the large brands in India, they've started understanding that, if you're creating ads, the kind of traction that you see with an ad communication lesser than with organic content, right? So they want to create these mini series and kind of integrate the brand within them. Another example of this was Listerine, where, we got a brief from Listerine saying that, generally when people think of mouth freshener, they think of infection, they think of disease, they think of bad breath. And they wanted to move away from that perception towards being a healthy product, where people who have a healthy lifestyle and people who are very active use Listerine because it's a part of their lifestyle, right? And they said that we want a big influencer who can kind of communicate this message with our audiences. And we felt that, Milind Soman is somebody who is very influential, and he's somebody who has a large fan following as well. So Milind then took this communication and he said that Listerine can be used by people while they're having a healthy lifestyle, and it will help them become better people as well. Right. So those are the integration that you can have from a content perspective. You can do an in-show integration, you can do a graphical integration, or you can create content for yourself. Apart from content integrations, we also have technical integrations. So these are basically tech-led, where we can, showcase a particular product within our application, and your brand and logo will be within it. So I'll give you a few examples of that. Swiggy came in as a sponsor for IPL in 2019. And as part of the sponsorship, they wanted to increase the number of people using the Swiggy application. And what they told us was that they have about 80 to 100 million people who are currently consuming the app, and they want to grow from 100 million to 200 million. So how do they do that? What we told them was that, we have more than 300 people consuming IPL. And during IPL, typically if you look at the user behavior, people always thought of cricket as a very community activity, right? So they watched it on television with their friends and family, or they went to a theater. And food was always a part of the experience. So what we said was, why don't we create an immersive experience within the app while you're consuming IPL or watching cricket, you can also order your food. And for this, we had done a payment integration at the back end. So you could have ordered your food while watching cricket without closing the app. I'll just give you a demo of that. Yeah, so how it works is that you have the Swiggy pop button on your screen. And if you click on the Swiggy pop button, you see a couple of menu options popping up. And these menu options will depend on what you have ordered previously, right? So if you're a biryani eater, or if you're a pizza eater, you will see those options coming up on the screen. You can select what you want to order, and it will automatically pick up your address. And there was a Paytm integration as well from the backend. So, without closing the app or without disrupting your experience, you could have ordered your pizza or you could have ordered your biryani. What happened during this period for about 3 months when IPL was on last year, Swiggy saw a huge uplift in the number of transactions that they had on their platform. And a lot of these transactions came from new users who did not currently have the Swiggy app. So I think it was a great integration for them. We had also done an integration with Dream11, where Dream11 said that for every property that we have on Hotstar, we want to showcase ourselves as a brand. And apart from that, we also had a watch and play integration with Amazon, where when you were watching IPL, every time a bowler puts in a ball, you can predict what's going to be the outcome of that particular delivery. So is it going to be 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs, 4, or a wicket? Yeah, so these are examples of tech integrations. Quick call out on this, because we need our tech team and our engineering team to essentially change the backend while a live experience is happening. This requires about 6 to 8 months of advanced planning. So you have to communicate, if IPL is being launched in April, you have to go to market in October, telling your clients that these are the kind of properties that I have. These are the kind of integrations which are possible, and we need to close it within October or November itself. Otherwise, we will not have enough time to ensure that the integration can be done from the back end. And at the same time, there's a certain amount of investment which is also required. So if you want a tech integration to be done, you need to come on board as a sponsor on Hotstar.
So all the ad campaigns that are run to kind of popularize this particular campaign, is the payment made by the brand or it is done by Hotstar?
Come again, can you repeat the question? So if a campaign is being done by a client, payment for the inventory or payment for the stars?
So like something that Amazon did. So you might have run few ad campaigns to popularize this campaign as well, right? On
Right.
TV or yeah. Who
Okay,
pays for that?
Understood. So Swiggy and Amazon, they came in as co-presenting sponsors on IPL, and the investment was more than 50 crores. So what we do is, for the co-presenting sponsors on any of the large properties, we do a co-marketing campaign. So, we go very aggressive on television, we go aggressive on digital as well. And as part of that, we mention that these are the presenters of the particular tournament.
So that means the cost is shared, right?
So it's part of the deal. When somebody comes on board as a sponsor, we tell them that we are also going to make you as in our marketing, we are going to feature you as well, and we are going to do PR for you as well.
Got it.
But again, sponsors, they spend 50, 60 crore plus. So in terms of the marketing cost, it's not much. If you're doing a digital and a TV campaign, we'll probably spend about 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs. So for us, there's enough margin to kind of absorb that cost and give that kind of, because the brand will not be advertising an IPL, right? It will be advertised by us, but we will tell them that these are the particular brands which are associated with us.
Got it.
So apart from tech integrations, we can also do social feed integrations. I'll give an example. This was Uber when they came in last year. So Coke, this was part of the Share a Coke campaign, where Paresh Rawal and Ranbir Singh, they had a big campaign on television and on digital as well. And they said that, when you have a Coke, it's a very personal experience, and you should also have the option to share your Coke with somebody else, right? So I might want to share a Coke with my sister. I might want to share it with my grandmother, with my father, whoever. So we gave that social feed integration within Hotstar, and there was also an option to share that particular image with one of your friends. So there was an integration with WhatsApp also over there, and you could have shared it while watching a match. So, just to make the match experience more exciting, while the match was going on, you could share it with your friends and kind of tweet it on your Twitter, and you can also talk about it on social as well. So that's it from an integration perspective. If we don't have any questions, then I'll move on to the next section. All right. So now this was about the platform in terms of what are the numbers when it comes to Hotstar, what are the kind of integrations that we can do on the platform. We also talked a little bit about the industry and the development. The next stage is that, when you go and meet a marketer, or when you go and meet a client, what are the kind of questions that are there on his mind? What are the kind of KPIs that the marketer is trying to achieve? And how can you decode his mind so that you can give him a solution which is more customized towards his requirement? So what I do is that the moment I approach any of my clients, I do an analysis of the products and categories which the client has. To give you a sample working, what I've done is, this is in the case of Oppo, where I've said that there are 4 major product series that they have. There's the A series, there's the F series, Reno, and R series. And within these series, I have defined that what are the products that they have launched historically for the last 5 years. What is the price range in which they operate? What is the key USP? Who is their target audience, and how are they positioned? So, if you take the case of an A series, you will see that it's priced between 8 to 12K, which is on the mass segment, the low segment. And these are basically young people who are either students or first jobbers, and the positioning is of a mid-range, high-quality device. Similarly, an F series, which is slightly higher priced, is between 15 to 20K. It's looking at first jobbers and students, but it's being positioned as a premium device. So the communication is going to be different. Reno is starting at 40K, going up to 50 and 60K. So it's a different audience that they're going after, and they're going after the high performance device versus an R series. So once I have defined my products and categories, the next step which I do is I look at the upcoming launches for that particular brand. And this is information which is generally there in the market, which you can go to particular websites and see what's happening, or you can even talk to the brand team or the agency team to get a sense of what is the marketing calendar and what are the products which are being launched. So typically, I tell them that these are 2-3 products which are being launched. This is the price range in which you're operating, and this is the key competition that you have. So, if it's in the mid-range, then a Samsung M series could be a competition, a Vivo could be a competition. And post that, what we do is we do an entire mapping of the year. So, for example, 2020, what I'll do is I'll list down all the properties which are there on Hotstar. And month by month, I'm going to tell them that which month that particular property is going to be aired on Hotstar. And they can then come back with their input in terms of how they want to leverage these properties based on their marketing. Okay, so once we have done a mapping of the marketing calendar and the content calendar, we look at the key associations and partnerships. So for example, if I want to take the case of a Vivo, I want to know that what are the things that Vivo has done in the last 6 months or 1 year, and what are the key associations that they've had. So for example, this again is a sample case. It's not actual for any client. It's possible that they could have a global JVP. JVP is a joint business plan where they have a huge deal with a particular platform like Google. They could sponsor one particular property like a PUBG or a Budget 2019, or take a category sponsorship of Ghana.com. And at the same time, on the right-hand side, what you see is what are the platforms in which they're currently advertising. Cool. And the next section that we have is what is their marketing strategy and what is their budget. And this is something which I face on a daily basis. I had a conversation with a client last month, and what they told me was that they want to do some kind of innovation on the platform, and they want to do something which is completely different, which is path-breaking, and which has not been done by any platform in India. So I said that I'll get back to you with some of my suggestions basis the brand brief. I asked them for more details. The moment I asked them for their budget, they said we have a budget of 5 lakh rupees. So, it's very important at the very start to get a sense of what is the brand communication, what is the brand brief, and what is the client budget before you step into the solutioning piece. Because, what you'll do is you'll end up wasting a lot of time trying to figure out solutions. And in a lot of cases, the agency is trying to push a particular plan to a client. They don't have any clarity in terms of what kind of budget the client has. Even the client does not have any clarity because, the product team is deciding what kind of budget they're going to have. So it's very important to understand this piece. Generally, what I do is I take a year-long view, and I look into the kind of investment that a particular brand has made over the period of a year. And I bifurcate that into different mediums. So I look at the TV spend, I look at the print spend, radio and digital. And once I understand that this is the total digital budget that the client has. So for example, in this case, we see the 75 crores is their total digital budget. Out of that, about 25 crores is spent on online video, which means that the remaining is spent on search and display and social, Facebook, etc. And once we get a view into their overall digital and their video budget, then we can look at the number of launches that they have, and basis that we can say that this client has an appetite of 30 crores or 40 crores, and this is the kind of pitch that we're going to make to them. Okay. Any questions on the budget piece?
Sir, how do you get this kind of information? Like how much the company, the client is like in the previous year he has spent, and what kind of expenses he has made up for the marketing? Like,
So
do you
TV and
directly?
data, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, go on.
So do you directly ask the client beforehand or something like that?
So there are multiple ways in which you can get the information. One is that you can reach out to the client or the agency, but the print and the TV budgets are available on Bark. So Bark is a universally accessible tool for media planning on TV. And from Bark,
yeah, continue, sir.
Yeah, so you can access the ATL spend. So ATL is above the line advertising, which includes TV, print, and radio. All this data is available on Bark as a tool. So if you can access the tool yourself, you can download the data. Or if you don't know how to use Bark, you can ask one of your people in the agencies to send the Excel file across to you. So this data will be available. Post which digital data is not available publicly. So you will need to ask the agency or do some research on your own to figure out.
Got it.
And the big pieces is that if somebody is spending very heavily on digital, it's very evident in the market because they'll take a couple of YouTube mastheads and they'll buy a couple of very big impact properties, and one YouTube masthead costs about 1 crore plus, right? So you will know that this is a client which is spending very heavily, and we should do some more research into their kind of appetite. And in this case, what I saw was that their TV spend was about 350 crores, while the digital spend was only 75 crores. So what we realized was that essentially the 350 crore that they're spending on TV is without any targeting, right? They're reaching out to a very, very broad-based audience, and there's a lot of spill which is happening in the campaign. So when I went to my client, I told him that you spent 300 crore on television, and you don't know the kind of return you had because there's no real reporting around it. You don't know the impressions, clicks, or the kind of business metrics around it. At the same time, you mentioned that your core TG was males, while on television 30% of the audience is female. So how do you justify that? So the only answer which I received to this question is that generally businesses are they're led by suppliers and they're led by distributors. And suppliers and distributors, the moment there's a TV campaign which happens, right? They see a lot of movement coming into the stores. They see a lot of footfall coming into retail stores, which is why the supply chain puts a lot of pressure on the client that you have to do a TV campaign, otherwise we will not promote your product or we'll sell somebody else's product. So it's a big barrier, and I feel that over a period of time, more and more of these budgets will start shifting towards digital, and it might take 5 years or 6 years, but eventually the contribution of digital will become similar, if not more, than television as we move along. So once we have done a deep dive of the marketing strategy and the budget, the other part is that when you get into the campaign, there are 6 or 7 legs that a campaign manager or a brand manager assesses when he's planning a campaign. At the very core of everything, there is the strategy in terms of what is the brand strategy, what is the communication strategy, what is the product strategy. And then there are going to be particular objectives around that product. There are going to be product USPs, and there's going to be a funnel which they'll define, saying, at the start of my funnel, I want to tell people that this product is being launched, so I want to build my awareness. Once I build my awareness, I want to build my consideration. And once I'm part of the consideration set, I want to build purchase intent, because then that's when I start pushing the sales metrics as well. So, broadly speaking, awareness is when you do a launch campaign. The first objective is to make sure that as many people out there are aware of your product as possible. So you do take a lot of impact properties. You could do a YouTube masthead, you could do a KBC, you could do a Sharma show, etc. During consideration, it's generally a mix of driving awareness and also to drive intent. So the kind of communication that you have is slightly different. And during the lower funnel, during purchase intent, you take different media vehicles. These are mostly performance marketing vehicles where you go on Amazon, you go on a Flipkart, you go on a Google search, and you try to drive that purchase intent from those channels. Yeah, so along with defining the product USPs, it's also very important to define where your brand lies in the brand positioning metrics, right? So typically we look at 2 of the metrics. One of them is quality and the second is price. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, there are brands like Techno, Lava, Micromax, Intex, Carbon, which are low in terms of quality and also low in terms of price. Above them, you have Xiaomi, which is very high in terms of quality, but it's at a very low price, which is why Xiaomi has been able to acquire so much market share. That they're able to give you products which have 6 GB RAM, they're able to give you 32 GB ROM, and they're still priced at less than 10K. Right? So that's something which nobody else has been able to do. And on the right-hand side, you see some of the premium brands like Apple, you see a Samsung, OnePlus. So typically what I do is when I go and meet any of my clients, whether it's a consumer durable client or whether it's a handset client, I build this metrics for them and I tell them that this is where your competition is. So for example, if I'm talking to a OnePlus, I'll tell them that, you are positioned as a high quality brand and your price is also okay. But over a period of time, if you want to be perceived as a more premium brand, you need to do more advertising on platforms like Hotstar, because that's when people will start thinking of you like an Apple. Right now, you're still thought of as a mass brand, which has stepped into the tech zone. But if you want to be thought of as a very premium brand and price yourself at 80K or 90K, you need to start doing more on the premium side and the association side. And these are the kind of properties that you can leverage within Hotstar. So you can look at a MasterChef Australia, you can look at some of the Nat Geo content and Oscars, which is essentially the English content for a premium brand. The final part is that once you have defined your budget and you've given a plan to the client, they will also want to know that how do you measure the efficacy of this campaign? What are the post-campaign metrics that they want to look at? So one is they're already defined that they want to have a 100% awareness score with their core target group. Apart from that, the brand manager also has some other metrics which they say that they want to have a 90% consideration score, or they want to have so many interactions on the platform. So how we do it is that we give a brand lift survey after the campaign. Brand lift survey is conducted 30 days. Once the campaign completes, from then to 30 days we conduct the campaign, and we see that people who were exposed to the ads, what was their awareness score before exposure, what was their awareness score after exposure, and then we tell them that this was the uplift that you had on your awareness, consideration, and purchase intent. We can also do third-party BLS surveys, but for this, there is additional cost. So we have to get an IMRB or a Nielsen or one of the research agencies to conduct this, and this takes a longer time as well. Cool. Any questions around measurement, evaluation, and media metrics?
Sir, what is the minimum budget in which we can start with Hotstar?
Hotstar. So, for the key client list, we're looking at a minimum investment of 5 to 10 lakhs. But, there have been cases where people have a smaller budget or a pilot campaign. So, cases when a kind of budget, if it's a smaller budget, then we can look at a smaller campaign and then show some results. And if the client feels that, it's given them good traction, then maybe in the next campaign, we can have a larger budget as well.
Okay.
Cool. Now, we'll talk about the final section of this presentation where, after you have done all of your evaluations, you've spoken about the brand and you've spoken about the product and you've talked about the strategy. When it comes to closing the deal, what I've seen is that, everything else is fine. You talk about the key metrics of your platform. You talk about the benefits of being on Hotstar or a YouTube or a Facebook. But when it comes to closing a particular deal, there is a certain role of logic where you give them numbers and you give them data and you give them, data-led arguments. But apart from that, emotions also play a very strong role in closing a deal. Something as simple as saying, if you're talking to Oppo, you tell them that Vivo is about to come as a sponsor on IPL. You suddenly see a lot of movement happening from the Oppo side as well, right? Or you tell them that, if somebody comes in as a category exclusivity, then you will not be able to buy inventory here. So things like that. I will talk about two big deals that we had done last year. One of the deals was a coffee with current deal that we had done with a handset brand. This was a mid-range handset brand that we had done this deal with. It was about $500,000 in terms of the ticket value. I'll talk about some of the challenges that we had while we were talking to the brand and different stakeholders within the brand. And the second deal that we'll discuss today is the IPL deal that I closed with a very premium handset brand last year. This was worth about 1 million plus. And there were various challenges that we faced because it was not just the India team that we were talking to. We were talking to the India team and the Singapore team and the New York team. And everybody had their point of view. So we had to ensure that whatever solution we were giving was fitting everyone's requirement. Now, talking about the coffee with current deal for last year, what I've done is I have prepared a SWOT analysis of the client and the agency. So on the client side, there were 4 key stakeholders that we were talking to. There was the digital marketing manager who was very, very tech savvy. He knew how different media platforms work, and he was very in favor of Hotstar. There was a media head as well who was leading digital as well as TV media. So he was more of a neutral person in the equation. He was looking at the benefits of buying on Hotstar versus television versus YouTube, Facebook, etc. There was a CMO as well who was based out of India, and he was a new person, in the system. So he was still kind of getting used to what's happening, what are the conversations. And he was not actively taking part in any of the discussions. He was saying that, my media head and the digital marketing manager will take a call and I'll give a budget approval. Apart from that, there was the Chinese, the marketing team and the product team, which was based out of China. And unfortunately, we didn't have any access to them, which is why, it took us forever to kind of get an approval on this. Because when I spoke to my digital marketing manager on the client side, he said that he's waiting for an approval. And the CMO also said he's waiting for an approval, and we didn't have any other access apart from that. So the strength was that, we, the team on the client side had a good understanding of digital. They knew the value of impact properties like a Coffee with Karan. They knew that, if they want to position themselves as a premium brand, they need to be on premium properties. So they were completely bought in from that perspective. Unfortunately, the one of the weaknesses was that the budgets were controlled centrally from the global team, right? And the global team, we had no real influence over them, and we had no connect with them as well because they were not based out of India. The few opportunities which I saw and which my team saw was that there were at least 6 to 7 product launches which were lined up across the year, right? So I knew that, the moment I have a conversation with them, I'll tell them that if you are not present on some of the key properties, the interest for your brand will fall, and eventually your product sales are also going to fall. So it was an easy conversation to have because we knew that they were advertising on other platforms as well. So we could have pulled some budget from there. And the second part was that we knew that they were looking to establish themselves in the premium segment, right? So they were trying to take market share from a OnePlus. They were possibly trying to take market share from an Apple as well. And in this segment, there were only 2 or 3 players. So they were willing to spend money without asking too many questions around performance and what is the kind of metrics they'll see in terms of the business metrics. One of the problems which we had with them was that they were extremely price sensitive. So they had a commercial team within the client. Okay. Sorry, so I'm sorry guys, I dropped off. There was a power cut in my building. So where did I get dropped off? Was I talking about the client weaknesses and strengths?
Yes, at the point that you weren't able to get to the Chinese stakeholders.
Okay. So, this is a problem that we had where we were not able to reach out to the people who were taking budget decisions. And it was a very, very sensitive conversation because the people in the India market, they were kind of pushing the property. And we were not getting any clarity in terms of when the deal was about to be closed, right? So apart from the clients, we also had the agency team. And on the agency side, we had a client servicing manager. There was an operations manager. There was an account director and a business head. The good part was that we already had a long-term agreement with the agency, right? So they were on our side in terms of evangelizing the platform. And the team was also very good in terms of data. They were also very good in terms of understanding of digital. So they were able to build a very strong case for us within the brand side. The one problem which I saw with the agency, and it wasn't an agency issue, it was more of a strategy issue that the client was not really giving the agency any view into their upcoming strategy, right? So the agency had no idea in terms of what products were about to be launched, what was the kind of marketing calendar that they had. And it was more to do with the kind of secrecy that the product team within the client had, right? So, we were not able to do any year-long planning with the client because of this reason. And we had to wait for one particular campaign to break before we got any kind of input or before we got a brief. The opportunity was that the agency was proposing a long-term plan with the client. And they were also looking to partner with them. So the partnership would have included various aspects, which could have been the media aspect along with the integrations as well. And the threat that we saw was that, the agency had long-term deals with Google and Facebook, right? So they were kind of evangelizing those platforms as well. Next slide. Yeah. So coming to what was the ask by the client, what was the logic and the rationale that we gave to the client, and what were the emotional levers that we pulled to kind of eventually win the argument and close the deal, right? The first ask from the client was around pricing. So we had a certain amount of CPM that we have for Coffee with Karan. It's a very premium property. They asked us for a 50 to 60% discount in the first initial conversation. So, I knew for a fact that we can't offer a 50% discount to any client, no matter how much they're spending on Hotstar, right? So what I told them was that, if you come and buy inventory on Coffee with Karan, I can give you a 10% discount, or I can give you a value add rather. You buy as much inventory as you want, and 10% I'll give you as a bonus. If you come in as a sponsor, then I can give you 20% as a bonus inventory, and that will be subject to you doing an advance payment. So there was a lot of back and forth between us and the client team and the agency team, and eventually things got stuck because they were looking at a 50% and we were talking about 20%, right? So one thing which they told us was that they will not be able to do any kind of advance payment because their internal stakeholders do not allow that. So what I said was, okay, fine. If you cannot do an advance payment, that is something which I can discuss internally. But at the same time, you also have to allow me to kind of go back to my management and create a case, and 50% discounting cannot be allowed at my side also. So let's both kind of go back to the drawing board and come back with a particular solution where we can meet each other halfway, right? Along with that, what I told the brand head and the marketing head was that, we will do co-marketing for you. So when we go to market and we talk about Coffee with Karan being launched, you will be as part of our promo, you will be part of our PR campaign as well. And this will only happen if you are one of the first 3 sponsors on Hotstar. If you take your time, if it delays beyond a month, then I'm sorry, I'll not be in a position to do it, because by then the co-marketing campaign, the PR campaign will already be on air. So this created a lot of pressure on the client side, where they said that, okay, fine, we will try to get the approval quickly from our Chinese management. The second part was that, they wanted a lot of visibility and they wanted to have very, very strong SOV, share of voice on the property. And they said that nobody else should be on the property apart from us. So that was something which we could not do, because, you can't have just one guy advertising on a large property. What we told them was that to ensure that they're visible throughout the entire season, around the 15 20 episodes, we are going to make sure that on every episode, we are uniformly pacing the campaign, where they will have at least 3 to 4 ads coming up per episode. And apart from that, we also told them that, inventory was not really available, because it's a premium property, and we're talking to Nokia and we're talking to Motorola and some other players as well in the market. So, if they take their time in closing it, then we might not be able to give them the best inventory which is available currently. Apart from that, the client also asked for category exclusivity. So what they said was that if we come on this particular property of Coffee with Karan, then nobody else from the handset vertical can kind of come on board. And what we told them was that if you come in as a co-presenting sponsor at the highest level, then we can give you category exclusivity. Otherwise, if you come in as an associate sponsor, which was at $500,000, we can limit the inventory that we give to your competition by about 70%. So whatever, let's say if you have about 100 million impressions on Coffee with Karan, and one of your competition comes on board, then they will not get more than 70 million impressions. So we'll limit that, and you will be the most dominant player from your category. And also, what the client said was that they want to have 3P reporting. So third-party reporting is that, when we do a campaign on Hotstar, we provide them data. This is how many impressions and clicks have been delivered on our numbers. But there are also third-party trackers that you can install on the campaign to see that if those numbers are actually verified, if those numbers are actually accurate. We allowed that. We said that you can put in your third-party trackers, but we will not let you bill on those trackers. So, if my tracker is showing that 15 million impressions were served, and your third-party tracker says that 6 million was served, you cannot pay me on 6 million. You have to pay me on 15 million itself. And we got a lot of lashback coming in from the India team and China team saying that, we don't work with any publishers basis their numbers. We always go basis our numbers, right? So then we had to, give them an emotional argument that we are the largest OTT player in the market and we have a proven track record. And if our numbers are not accurate, then how come all of their competition is on our platform? So eventually, we were able to, kind of manage that discussion as well, where we told them that if you insist on this, we will not be able to move forward with the deal, and we'll have to go with some other player. And the final piece was that they wanted integrations on Hotstar as well. And what we did was that every time there was a high energy moment within the show, we had done a graphical integration where we said that this superbook charging feature will be available while the show is being aired. So finally, when we made all of those arguments, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of cry for discounting and third-party reporting as well. But eventually, when both we and the agency went to the client and we convinced them that this is the best that we can do for you, eventually within 2 weeks, we were able to get the purchase order in. So I think that was a big achievement for all of us. If any of you have any questions around these points, you can go ahead right now. Otherwise, we'll move on to the IPL deal.
Sir, in the inventory stuff, what are you referring to inventory? Like, I didn't understand that.
So by inventory, I mean ad inventory. So there is a mid-roll ad, there's a pre-roll ad, there's a billboard ad as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So basically, when I say inventory, I mean ad inventory. And along with ad inventory, we also gave them one level. Since they came in as an associate sponsor, we offered them an integration. And along with that, we also gave them marketing support along with PR. So every time, we did a campaign on print, television, radio, etc., we said that, they are an associate sponsor of this particular property.
And all these sponsorships and co-sponsorships you're offering that are only offered on shows which are in-house.
Yeah, so we can't, for
yeah,
shows
then
which
again,
are,
yeah.
Anything which is behind the paywall, we can't do any monetization from advertising. And, most of the shows which are English in nature, they're not owned by us, right? So they're licensed shows, and we can't really go about and give any kind of sponsorship, or even, we can't even do an inventory sale on those properties.
Got it.
Cool. Next slide. Yeah, so this was the IPL deal that was closed last year with a very premium handset brand. And the challenge was slightly different with this brand because as compared to the Chinese brand that we talked about, they were not very price sensitive. At least the client was not very price sensitive, the agency was. but there were multiple lines of communication that were open, right? So we had somebody who was heading the India marketing team. He was a marketing head. We had a global team as well, which was based out of New York. And we had a brand communication head who was based out of Singapore. And there was a director of marketing as well who controlled the budget. So the problem was that, when this particular brand, they came up with a marketing campaign, they did a global campaign, which was done for all the markets. And any campaign that they closed had to adhere to the guidelines which were set by the global team. Right. So they were very savvy when it came to digital. They understood all the metrics, they understood how to go about with media planning, buying, etc. They also believed in OTT as a platform because they are very strong in the US market, and US is very strong in terms of OTT. The problem was that they were very rigid when it came to the brand communication. So they said that if we have this one particular communication, it has to be this way across all the markets, and we have very strict guidelines around the kind of formats that we can use. We have very strict guidelines around the kind of content in which we can show our ads. And we in fact had to actually come up with a list of content on Hotstar and get an approval from them, saying that your ad will show only on these particular shows and not on those shows. So that was required as a precursor to the campaign. The opportunity was that, what I saw was this brand had been losing market share in India and the other markets as well. And, it was a significant drop in market share. They lost about 50% market share. And I knew that they're going to do a lot of brand initiatives and they're going to activate new audiences because the current set of audiences are moving on to other brands, right? So there was a huge opportunity in terms of the budget that they had. The problem was that, they didn't have any clear strategy in terms of how they're going to acquire these new users. So that's how, we had to talk to them and understand their marketing strategy. And once we got a sense of who their users were, then we were able to give them a solution. On the agency side, we were talking to very senior stakeholders. So there was an account director who was directly managing our account because it was a huge client. And the agency head was also involved in the communication. The good part was that we already had a joint business plan in place with this particular client. So we had a long-term deal which was already locked in. It was a huge deal that we had signed, and they were already a strategic partner. The problem again was that they were very, very reluctant. When it came to the agency, they were very reluctant to tell the agency what their product calendar looked like because they felt that it might leak into the market and the product might get copied. So even the agency had no real view into what was getting launched and when was it getting launched. The opportunity was that we had an opportunity to scale up the JBP. So if the current opportunity, if we had a plan in place for 20 crores, we thought that we could double that in size and move it to 40 crores. And how we can do it is we can move spends from another platform to Hotstar because we were very sure that they were looking to position themselves in the high end of the market. So YouTube is considered to be a very mass platform, so is a Facebook. So we had a very strong argument over there saying that if you want to be perceived as premium, you need to stop spending on platforms which are very massy in nature and you have to move towards a more premium platform. Okay, next slide. Cool. So coming to the client ask, the first one was that they wanted to maintain and solidify their position as a premium brand. They wanted targeting and efficiency, and they wanted sustained presence along with third-party reporting and regular campaign reports as well. So for the premium imagery, what I had done was that I told them that, as compared to the other platforms, 80% of my audience is the SECA audience, which is a premium audience. Can we go to narrative slide? Okay, there's a link as well. Yeah, so what I said was the first level of cut that we gave the client was that people who are using Hotstar, we have divided them into 3 segments. So one segment is people who have a handset less than 10,000 rupees. Second is the 10 to 30K segment, and then the 30K plus segment. On online video, what we saw was about 50% users were using a handset which is between 10K and 30K and above. And on Hotstar, that number was 61%, which showed that we had more premium users on our platform, which meant that they should start moving some of the budgets away from online video platforms to Hotstar. Second. Next slide. Now, the other piece is that we benchmarked the kind of audiences that we had in terms of the SEC, the socioeconomic classification. And what we saw was that as compared to TV and overall and online video, we had more percentage of people on SEC, A and B or Hotstar as compared to other mediums. So almost about 60% of our audience was, 80% of our audience was in SEC, A and B. And this was exactly the kind of TG that the brand had in mind as well. So they felt that, instead of going on a platform where only 60% of my audience will be relevant, I'm going on a platform where 80% of the audience is relevant. At the same time, I'm also getting the association that I'm on a premium platform, so that association will rub off on my brand as well. Next slide. So Apart from that, we'd also shown that people who are on our platform, they are using high-end durables. So they have smartphones which are more than 15K or more than 20K. And at the same time, they also are using premium services. They have a plasma TV at home. Next slide. Yeah. So apart from having premium consumer durables at home, they're also frequent travelers. 21% of the audiences on our network are traveling frequently, and they also use debit cards and credit cards. So this is how we tackled the logical part of the premium imagery. So you can go back to the IPL deal. Yeah. On the targeting and efficiency piece, what we did was we told the client that if we are able to close this in advance, if we are able to get an early closure to the deal, we can actually create one particular targeting cohort which will be specialized for you as a brand. And you can target all the people who have a 20K plus device on Hotstar. Now, just to give you a sense of how difficult it is to give targeting on live sports, when people are viewing content on a VOD format, which means that they are viewing it one-to-one, we can give multiple layers of targeting because these people are not viewing it in a live environment. In a live environment, when we give any targeting, we have to actually break the feed into multiple streams, and people consume those streams. So from a tech perspective and from a loading perspective, it's very difficult for us to create that. So what we said was that we will create this for you, and one particular stream for 20K plus devices will be made for you, and we'll also ensure that the inventory which is available for 20K plus devices, it will be reserved for you as well. So we will reserve over 60% of the inventory, and we'll not give it to anybody else. This was one of the levers where we said that if you get an early closure, then we will create one particular targeting for you, and we will also not give it to anybody else. The second part was that they wanted sustained presence across the tournament. So we said that we can give you an exclusive offer at a sponsorship level where every single day we'll ensure that your ad is being shown in the tournament, right? And typically during IPL, what happens is that if you have a moment where people are not a non-exciting moment during the match, the kind of people watching it could be about 1 to 2 million. But during the crunch overs and during the exciting moments of the match, the number of users can go up to 25 million. So it's very difficult to control the frequency and the kind of exposure that you have. What we told them was that for you, as a special case, we are going to try to control that. So we will control the number of people who see your ad in a live environment. And we'll also try to give you some additional impressions if we have impressions available. We also allowed for the first time third-party trackers on a live environment as a pilot. And apart from that, we also gave them a dashboard which gave them real-time reporting on what's happening. And every time a course correction had to be done, we did that real-time for them. So the ops team was working till midnight, and they were working weekends as well to ensure that the client had a good experience. So this is how we closed the deal. And honestly, there have been bigger deals which have been closed, but in terms of the number of challenges that we had on this deal, it was difficult because there were 3-4 different regional teams that we were talking to. And there was also agency in the middle, and everybody had a different point of view. So getting everyone on board took about 3 to 4 months. But once we got them on board, I think the deals that we cracked after this were much easier to crack. Cool. Any questions, guys? Because I'm done from my end.
Just one question, sir. Like when we were talking about the premium users, and you were telling that we can't show ads to the premium users, right? So like after a user subscribe and become the premium user, so how do you further generate your revenues through them?
See, premium users who are consuming live content, they will still have to see the ads on cricket and other tournaments.
Okay.
But otherwise, for a VIP connection, we get 365 rupees per user, and on a premium user, we get about 1,000 rupees per year. So that is an alternate source of revenue. But as you know, right now it's about 5% of our audience. So we still need to kind of scale that and see if that can be grown further.
All right.
Another challenge that we have in monetizing the subscription-led revenue is that there are already so many services which are present, right? So people, living in metros and tier 1 towns, they already have a Netflix which they're paying for. They're already paying for a Prime as well. And getting them to pay for a third or a fourth platform is pretty challenging, right? So instead of getting direct clients or getting direct customers who pay for us, we're trying to do partnerships with Jio, Airtel, Vodafone, and even handset manufacturers where we say that, for every Xiaomi phone, we're going to have a Hotstar pre-installed. So instead of asking the consumer to pay for it, we can ask the brand to pay for it because it will add more value to the Xiaomi network or it will add more value to the Vivo network as well.
All right, sir.
Cool, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. I will share a copy of this presentation. I'll remove a few sections which are client specific. And if you have any other questions, you can ask me on the WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Saumitra. And I think that today's session is very helpful and also, insightful. It concludes so many data and cases there. And thank you very much. And also thank all the people who attend the session all the time. So we will share the videos of today and also the PPT of Saumitra for today's session within our WhatsApp group. And also I have already sent our WhatsApp group link here, and you can join our WhatsApp group to get the materials for today. And also we will invite more people like Saumitra in the future to hold the kind of webinars to share more insights in the future. So just join our WhatsApp group and stay tuned.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for ending the session. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. See you next time.